Well, aloha kahiaka, everybody. We are starting the pre-show. We got about 5 minutes before the live show starts. So if you're watching this on a recorded video, you can fast forward about 5 minutes to get to where the live program is, or you can just kind of join us as we kind of do our little warm up, a little talk story over here. I'm really happy to be back with my friends here. We've got Dylan, who's back with us from his service to our nation on the last week, and Heidi, who was on the mainland, and she's back. And Scott and I were just kind of back to do our old thing again. So, Heidi, welcome back, Heidi. How was your trip? You were on the mainland for a little while, weren't you? You got unmute your mic. I was doing it all last week. Last week, Scott and I was muted and talking. So go for it. How was your trip? How was your trip, Heidi?
It was great to be back on the mainland to see family. I'm glad I took the opportunity. Unfortunately, coming back to Maui, I do have to quarantine. Currently day 9 of 14. I have not left the house, so that's been an experience. As far as flying, I actually felt pretty safe. The planes were not full. There was nobody sitting by me on the plane. When I arrived on Maui, they took my temperature. I had to stand in a big line and fill out this quarantine paperwork. They ask you where you're staying and look at your ID. They test your cell phone to make sure they can call you. So far in 9 days, I've only had one phone call and one text message to ask if I'm doing the quarantine, but I'm doing it. So I'm here just a few more days.
So how does it feel being sort of cooped up, literally, because you literally you can't walk out of the house, right? So you have to have everything delivered. That's kind of a fun thing, I would think, on one sense, but it's not fun being stuck in the house. How's that feeling?
Well, I feel very grateful for my friends and my family that have been showing up and delivering me food. And so that's great. I mean, I'm not even supposed to take out my trash, so I just—
Oh, wow. You can't even take out your trash. Holy moly. I mean, you really can't go out of the house. All right. Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're back.
I'm used to going out and walking. I go to the beach every day. I swim. I'm generally pretty active, so that was what I'm concerned about most. But it's been okay. I'm gonna get through.
You got a few days to go. So, Dylan, welcome back. How was your adventure? I know it's all top secret and you can't tell us anything, but how was your adventure?
Nothing top secret. It was good. We do that every summer. We got to do our 2 or 3 weeks of annual training. But one thing that people don't realize is these COVID restrictions have much larger impact sometimes on other things, and we were definitely impacted by that. So right in the middle of it, they had reimposed the inter-island travel quarantine. So we had to actually change our plans and send home the troops from Maui and Oahu early because we didn't want them to get caught in a inter-island quarantine when they got home and have to stay home for 14 days, not be able to go back to work. And then we would have to deal with keeping them on reserve orders or what we would have to do. So we actually spent the kind of the second half of it back at our home stations conducting training there. But we did pretty much change a plan that we had in place for a long time based on the new restrictions that came out.
And welcome back. Scott, how are you doing, buddy? You're hanging in there?
Yeah, good. Actually, this past week was not only busy on the real estate side. We got to dry it in on the house that I'm building, helping them install the metal roof. And then I got a south swell came in, so I got a chance to get out and surf. And man, talk about totally relaxing. Those are the times where no matter how stressful the day is, when you get out there and you get I was only out for an hour. I actually went by a house and then with my board and then went out, and you just, all your cares melt. It's awesome feeling with the sun beating down.
Ain't that the truth? Nothing quite like a south swell. Well, hey gang, it is that time. It's officially 9 a.m. and we are gonna get started. I want to welcome you all to our show today. This is our Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show, and really glad you're all here with us. let's kind of do our normal thing that we always start. Let's give our COVID update. I was just trying to think about how I could put it, and I can't put it any other way than COVID in Hawaii is a big hot mess, is what it is. On the inset there, you'll see Scott and I, we made the prediction 2 weeks ago. We said, hey, you know what? We think this place is going to be closed until October 1st. And sure enough, a few days ago, there was an announcement. We are indeed closed until October 1st. Oahu has really gone, there's been a huge, relatively speaking, huge spikes in Oahu cases. And so now they've outlawed any kind of social gathering whatsoever. Not even a quantity. You can't get together with your friends you can't get together with friends and family, period. And in terms of public places like restaurants and gatherings, or those kinds of gatherings, it's like a group of five. You can't go more than a group of five. It's a mess. On the government side, the government side is kind of all messed up. There's infighting at the state. Tulsi Gabbard, the congresswoman, that from District 2, she brought out there has been whistleblowers about incompetence and about, contract tracing has been a mess. There's been senators, state senators have been going into the Department of Health offices to kind of check and see how everyone's going, and the governor's getting all mad about it because everyone's pissed off that the administration's not doing contract. It's a big hot mess. It's a big hot mess. I'm going to open this up for discussion, but so here's my prediction. My prediction, the way I'm seeing this, is this state's going to be closed until there's a vaccine or economic reality hits us over the head. In other words, where we're going to have to open it because the state's going to essentially be going some degree of bankruptcy because they need tax revenue. But it's going to be closed for a long time. There's also this other thing, travel bubbles. This is a brand new story. It just came out yesterday. Resort travel bubbles. There's proposals floating around, and this is by no means anywhere near final. It's just a proposal that's getting floated around that they may allow resorts to create these sort of travel bubbles where there's not a lot of details here, but it's something along the order of you'd go to a resort, you check in at the resort, and you would stay quarantined within that resort. So unlike Heidi, who's stuck in her house, you'd be kind of, stuck at least at the resort. Presumably that means you could go to the pool, you can go to the restaurant, you can kind of move around that little community. Travel bubbles. So anyway, all right. So let's kind of go around, and there's actually one of the let's kind of get into a discussion. I want to hear what you guys think about this. So like Heidi, here's a classic one that's related here. Cancel my trip to Maui. So this is from Ron, and Ron says, I have a vacation planned on Maui for October 5th. I have until September 5th to cancel my condo for a full refund. Do you think visitors will be allowed on the islands by October 5th? My wife and I had to cancel our planned trip in April of this year, really hoping we don't have to cancel this one as well. I understand this will be a difficult question to answer, but you seem to have the ability to get information from your sources. We have fallen in love with the Hawaiian Islands. This will be our 5th year in a row to visit the islands. We would just move to the islands if we could, but 11 grandkids keep us from moving at this time. Any information you could provide would be greatly appreciated. Mahalo, Ron and Jamie. So thanks about that. Heidi, this has got the Maui background. You're the one who's quarantining. What do you say to Ron and Jamie if they should come out here for their October 5th trip? What do you say?
Well, my heart goes out to you and really to everybody that has been trying to travel this year and make it out to Maui. As we know, currently the 14-day quarantine requirement is in effect through October 1st. But honestly, I would not be surprised if it gets extended again. And when it is lifted, there's the pre-COVID testing protocol that's going to be in place. So vacation rental owners and managers have had to be very, very flexible this year with all these changes. So I would work with them to see what their terms would be should the state extend the quarantine again, because I think at this point the safest thing to say is we honestly don't know. But anyway, my heart goes out to you. I hope you make it on your trip soon. And yeah, being quarantined myself, I know it's not easy.
It's not easy, yeah. And thank you, Heidi, for those heartfelt words. It's nice to hear that. So Dylan, what's your take here on my big hot mess, proclamation, and then my prediction that we're going to stay closed until we have either a vaccine or we get hit over the head with economic reality?
Well, it looks like the economic reality is already setting in. There was a story this past week about the governor saying that they're going to have to do furloughs across the board for all state and county workers. And that's kind of a no-brainer with the complete elimination of TAT almost, which is the transient accommodations tax. And then the general excise tax is where the vast majority of state budget comes from, greatly being impacted by people just not being out there spending money in the economy. And that a lot of that revenue comes from tourists. There's no way the state's going to be able to sustain the type of expenses that it has going forward. And you already have a lot of the union leaders and other folks coming out and saying this is outrageous. But the reality is, I mean, anybody who understands finance knows that you can't continue to spend money at the rate you were spending money when you've completely cut off the revenue stream that provides for that money to be spent. So it's going to be, that may change the political dynamics when teachers and firefighters and policemen and state workers, the people that clean our parks, all have to take a 10+% pay cut here coming up soon.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to kind of see what's going to happen. Hopefully, those travel bubbles might give us something. But again, even those travel bubbles that they've mentioned, in sort of again in passing, things are too unpredictable. Like Heidi says, we really don't know. I can guarantee you this: if the cases continue to stay at the current level that they're at, things are going to be close. Scott, what's your take on this?
There's a couple of things. I mean, there was in the article the other day. It said if we get to 3,000 active cases, then that's an indication to shut down the state. Where? And they're trying to shut down the state. So if it stays where it is and it gets worse, the next measure is going to be to go back to stay at home. The other thing Dylan hit on it. I talked to someone not too long ago who's on unemployment, who's getting the unemployment benefit from state, and then they were getting $600 a week from the federal government. And they're like, hey, I don't really have incentive to go back to work now. Yeah, well, once you start doing all these furloughs and things, now people will start to feel pain on the economics. And that's when you're going to see some of those mindsets. But if people are sitting there with enough money to get by on unemployment and federal, the federal payment, then what incentive do they have to open the state at that point? And I think we're getting to this tipping point. The travel bubble thing, resorts, makes no sense to me. You come here and how are you not going to be exposed to other people? Not to mention who's going to wear. How are those people not going to at least be exposed? So I don't get it. Just do the test. Get rid of the quarantine altogether. Do the testing before you come. If you're negative, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that's all going to go, because even the testing is there was that whole plan about you get pre-tested, and if you're tested within 72 hours of travel, you can kind of come. That was one of the things that was an earlier plan that was floated, but as it turns out, they were not able to get that done because the testing is backlogged and you can't go to CVS. Scott, we have a little bit of a technical difficulty. Your sound is breaking up as well, so I'm going to have to as we go down the rest of the show, if there's a breakup, I'll have to let you know, because it's not intelligible to the people who are trying to listen to you. I'm trying to do the best I can, so just hopefully we can get those. Hopefully your Wi-Fi will come back, because your background is beautiful today. You've got the right lighting and all looking good. You're looking dapper. You got a nice shirt on, but the internet gods are not cooperating with us too much for today. Okay, let's get to let's shift into a real estate market update. I'd like to do, after the COVID thing, we talk about COVID. Give us kind of what you've been what you've been seeing and feeling, kind of boots on the ground, real world experiences. What's been happening? Scott had a couple of really good stories at our last show. Dylan, what's been going on? What have you been sensing the past couple of weeks or so since you got back with the real estate market?
Yeah, so I just put out our my monthly market update yesterday, and the big takeaway from it was definitely there's no drop off, and pretty much there's been a almost complete recovery back to the pre-COVID numbers. So across the island, on the Big Island, we're 1% down in terms of the number of homes that sold in the month of July versus July a year ago. So pretty much exactly the same. In the Kona market, still a little bit down, like 16%, but climbing right back up to normally about 40 to 50 homes sell in the Kona market every month. And so we're back to that level at 41. and the actual median price was up. So the median price continues to climb. So there, anybody waiting for a big drop off or a market crash and a great deal in the near future, it's the market is not showing that, and we're still feeling that on the ground with just demand. I just contacted about a home yesterday that somebody wanted to get a virtual tour of, and when I called the listing agent, they said they had 3 offers in hand and 2 more on the way, and this just came on the market like a day ago. So homes that are priced well, that are desirable, are still selling almost immediately, and we're seeing continuing to see those sight unseen buyers continuing to buy. So people have faith, or they just want to get out of wherever they're at and come here, so they're willing to take a chance, buy a house, and they can come out here and quarantine in it once it closes. So
there you go. Buy the house and make it your quarantine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Heidi, what's your sense? I know you're even though you're cooped up in quarantine, what's been your sense of what's going on with the real estate market in Maui?
Oh, well, I've still been very busy working, even though I have been at home. Overall, Maui prices are still very stable and strong. In looking at our latest real estate stats, the number of sales and properties under contract this year compared to what was going on last year in 2019 is down. But I think that's very understandable considering travel and tourism has been shut down now for about 5 months. There's plenty of demand for Maui properties, though, and I think it's very possible we could be entering into a very, very busy market once it becomes safe to travel and the quarantine is lifted. Now, I hear enrollment at some of our private schools is up because we're seeing families that are relocating to Maui so their kids can go to school here. So that's kind of interesting as well. Yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure, but things are still moving.
Thank you, Heidi. There was a couple of questions here that I think are relevant to the real estate update. A buyer or seller's market. It sounds to me like it's a seller's market from what I'm hearing you say here. But why don't you there are 2 questions here. Is it a buyer or seller's market? And are the short-term rentals, are they being put up for sale? That's a relevant question. How do you respond to that, Heidi?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the single family home market, it still is more of a seller's market. A balanced market is generally considered about 6 months of inventory. For single family homes, we have about 4.8 months of inventory. Condominiums on Maui, however, are tipping towards more of a buyer's market with about 6.4 months of inventory currently. The number of properties going under contract has decreased some, which I mentioned earlier, and sales activity has slowed. The most challenged part of the market right now is the short-term rental market, but they're still selling. I have a property that's closing next week that's a vacation rental. The buyers were doing a 1031 exchange. They sold a commercial property on the mainland. They're buying an oceanfront condo. There's definitely things still selling, but I would say for a buyer that's been kind of waiting on the sidelines and wanting to get into a good property, if they're coming in the Maui market now, they're going to have more options and probably a little bit more negotiating leverage than they would have experienced if they were making an offer on something last year. So it's a pretty cool opportunity for buyers right now. I mean, really the whole challenge again is just people being able to get out to Maui to actually see the properties. So we're really investing a lot in video and 3D tours and virtual tours, and doing as much as we can to market our listings here.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really quick here. Teresa says, why is Heidi having to quarantine? Did you come into contact with someone who tested positive? No, Teresa, Heidi just came in from the mainland. She went to the mainland. She went to visit her family on the mainland and then came back. And when you come back to Maui, whether you're a longtime resident or not, you have to go under quarantine. There's the quick answer on that one. Hey, Scott, so how are you doing over there? And actually, I want to tell you here really quick. Somebody said, "Oh, yeah, Teresa, that she's you've got a fan over here." So Teresa's in 100% agreement with what you were saying. Maybe try speaking a little bit slower. That might help. But tell us what's been the what's the boots on the ground of kind of what's been going on Oahu's real estate over the past few weeks.
Yeah, I changed to. So does that sound better? Can you hear me?
The sound is good. It just gets broken up because of I think the net connection kind of cracks you up a little bit, but give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah, it actually really interesting. It's definitely a seller's market on the family homes. And just like the island, our number of sales have now caught back up to where we were same time last year pre-COVID. So there's plenty of buyers in the market. We're limited in inventory. So it's a very busy market. And to give you an example, I wrote a couple of offers this week, one on Wailaiki, where it was listed at 1.6 million. The home it was cleaned up, but hadn't been renovated probably 20, 30 years, needed some overhauling. You could move in and do the work. But the open house I drove by, they had a line outdoor around the garage, probably a 30 to 40 minute wait to get in because they're allowing 2 parties in at a time due to COVID. There were 16 offers. We bid up $100,000 over asking and we lost it. We didn't bid. And I even told the agent, just tell me what it's going to take to get it. If this doesn't work, tell me what it's going to take to get it. So on the single family home, we're busy.
Real quick, Scott, I just want to kind of highlight that you bid on a property, $100,000 over the asking price, and you did not get it.
Yep. Didn't get it.
Okay.
And the other offer I wrote, different property, was full price competing with full. We did get it, but I'm having to pull all the tricks and all the relationships that I've had over the 20 years with people and the tricks of the trade and all the things that we do, having been in the business this long, to get offers accepted. It's a tough market for people in the single family home side.
And at the same time, the Waikiki market's still kind of having its challenges. I know that you've got a property that you're going to share with us later in our Diamonds and Deals kind of a section. Hey, listen, another question came in actually for you, Dylan. This one here, let me kind of pop this one on there. So this is, Mark Lowe says, Aloha, is there any land on the Big Island that can be purchased that does not need to be built on within 1 year? Can I buy land now and build in 5 years?
Yeah, the answer to that is definitely, and the majority of land, there is no restriction to build on it. You can buy it and hold it for 20 years. There are a few gated communities and subdivisions with HOAs that will require not necessarily that you build on it right away, but if you start any type of construction, you have to finish it within a certain time frame. So in general, you should have no problems buying land and holding if you're not ready, or you're going to wait 5 or 10 years before you build. So no issues there.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Dylan. There was
the one thing I would add to that though is how you buy it. So if you buy it with cash and you pay it off, then you can do whatever you want. But if you need some type of land loan, most land loan programs you can amortize them over 15 or 30 years, but they need some type of payoff in a shorter time frame, like 3 to 5 years, because they're basically treating it like a bridge loan where you purchase the property and then you build a home on it and then you refinance it into a conventional loan. So that's one thing to consider, is how you plan to finance it.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for adding that in. We had a comment that came in from Kinaya, who says, I made it. I'm presuming that Kinaya means she made it, made her move to Hawaii. I couldn't help but notice she put a Biden-Harris sticker on her profile. And let me tell you, you're coming into a Democratic Party paradise. Hawaii is an absolute paradise for Democrats. It is truly a paradise, and you are gonna love it. Stargazer gave us a little tip over here. If Scott goes inside, he'll have better internet. yes, that's probably true, Stargazer. But if Scott goes inside, we'll have to kind of stop the show and let him move his desk and move his computer around. And so we're just going to have to let the internet gods do their thing here. Hey, let's move on. We have another question here, and Dylan, this is actually one for you as well. It doesn't fit with what you said, but it's a good move into this one. Big Island subdivision. So south of Hilo, this is from Ilana from Riverside, California, and she asks, south of Hilo, there are several subdivisions like Hawaiian Paradise Park, Hawaiian Beaches, Hawaiian Shores, etc. What is the difference between them, and why might someone choose one over the other? That's a good one.
They're pretty similar in general. They're all in rural South Hilo, the Puna area. Hawaiian Paradise Park is made up of 1 acre lots. So the lots are larger. Hawaiian Beaches and Hawaiian Shores are actually right next to each other on 2 sides of a main street. And I can't remember off the top of my head. One of them has a private water system. So you have regular water. The other one is on catchment. So that's one big difference between those two. I think it's Hawaiian Shores has the water and Hawaiian Beaches does not, but I can double check on that. But those are regular, 7 to 10,000 square foot home lots. So it's a little bit more dense and you don't have as much space, and a little bit more built out in terms of every lot being filled. There still are some empty ones, but in like Hawaiian Paradise Park, it's probably a less than 40% build out there. So either 1 acre lots, and then a lot of them are empty. So you can definitely have a lot of space and a lot of privacy in an area like that. But in general, that whole area is pretty much the same in terms of environment and rainfall and temperature and things like that. It's just a matter of location. So Hawaiian Paradise Park is the first subdivision in that area closest to Hilo. So you're probably 15 or 20 minutes away. If the further you go south to the Hawaiian Beaches, Hawaiian Shores area, you may be 30, 40 minutes away from getting into Hilo. And one big consideration out there is just one road in and out. So rush hour isn't as bad nowadays, but the traffic can get pretty bad because there's 50,000 people that live in that area, and most of them live there, but then work in Hilo. So there's a 2-lane highway that leads into Hilo, and that can be a consideration during the morning and afternoon travel times.
Actually, when she mentioned that, it brought back some old memories.
Right?
I lived in Hawaiian Beaches. This was in early 90s, 92, 93. And I'll ask you to kind of characterize it. So Dylan, if someone was living, let's say that someone right now lives in suburban America. You live in the suburbs outside some major city in the U.S. where, like 90% of the population in the U.S. lives. What would be sort of a couple of really big differences that you probably might not be prepared for or think through if you're living in suburbia? And let's say, for example, let's say you bought sight unseen in Hawaiian Paradise Park, and you're driving from you're in Hilo, you landed in Hilo, and you get in your car and you drive out to your house. What might be a few things that, might really shock you, or might really, not even think about, that you would see in those neighborhoods?
First of all, I wouldn't recommend buying sight unseen. I would recommend spending some time there and ensuring that it is the right place for you. But it's a very interesting society out there. You have a really big mix of, the mainland retiree, but then also the local family, and then also the just person that wants to kind of live in a freer society. I mean, it's common to see people without their shirt on in the store, and people without shoes on, and it's a very natural, just not modern society place, I guess is the right way to put it. It's very, very rural and very, very free love and open society and all that kind of good stuff. And that's one of the things people like about it out there. But if you're into structure and order and discipline, probably not the best place. Is that a good characterization?
I think now that you mentioned, one of my favorite stories was when we had moved there. My wife went to one of our neighbors and says, "Hey, what day is trash day? What day does the trucks come by to pick up your trash?" And the neighbor says, "Oh, trash day is every day." And Mom was like, "Why?" He goes, "Yeah, it's every day because you have to take your own trash in your own car and take it to the dump and dump it off." It's like, "Oh, okay." That was, and this was 20. This was in the early 90s, almost 30 years ago.
And then, of
Anyway,
course, the big thing you can't forget is that's where the lava flow was, right? I mean, really, you have Hawaiian beaches, Hawaiian shores, and then Nanavale and Leilani Estates, which is Leilani Estates is where the lava flow was happening, and ripped right through that neighborhood. So I would say Hawaiian beaches, Hawaiian shores is probably 2 miles away from where the active lava flow was. And it wasn't necessarily threatened because it's a topography thing and the lava wouldn't flow there based on the topography, but very close proximity and obviously a lot of impact during those months when we had the lava flow. So if you want to live as close as possible in a safe area to an active lava flow, potentially, that's the place to be.
there you go. That's a really good way. That's a really good way to put it. Hey, really quick before we move on to our next one, here's a really quick question that came in from Paul Rabina. Aloha again. Is home construction on the Big Island declining, on the rise, or leveling out due to the virus? Dylan, can you just kind of quickly hit on that one?
In general, it's not necessarily changing. In general, we don't have a lot of new home construction, especially in terms of large residential developments like you have on some of the other islands. Most home construction is right now currently happening in like the resort areas where they're building $5-10 million homes. And so you have the onesie twosie new home lots being built, but you don't have like tract developments of 100 new homes. So that's been the same for the last decade. I mean, there hasn't really been any new construction. So that hasn't really been affected by Corona.
Great. Thanks, Dylan. Okay, let's move on to our next one. This one's for you, Scott. This is Kirk from Los Angeles, and he says, we are moving to Oahu this winter from Los Angeles, selling our home here and buying there, working in Kapolei, but open to, Scott, I'm going to mute you there real quick. There's a lot of background noise. That's right. Okay, one more time. We are moving to Oahu this winter from Los Angeles, selling our home here and buying there, working in Kapolei, but open to living anywhere with good public schools within a 45-minute commute. Mililani, Kapolei, Eva Beach. Thoughts on areas to focus on and direction of the housing market on Oahu. So what do you say there to Kirk, Scott, who looks like he's going to be working in Kapolei? If he's going to be working in Kapolei, what would be your recommendation of kind of what he should be looking at? He wants good public schools within a 45-minute commute.
Yeah, 45-minute commute's actually going to give you quite a few options. You could even live in Kailua and counter the traffic flow in under 45 minutes, especially if you're on the Kaneohe side of Kailua. There's some good schools there. Mililani is known for having some of the better one of the best schools on the island. So that's a good starting point. Prices there, 600 to 1.5 million is the price point for single family homes. The median is almost 900,000. And to give you an idea of the housing market there, it's 99.7% of what sellers are asking for the properties that they're getting. So it's very busy, very tight market. A lot of same thing that we've been seeing in the rest of the house market. But there's some schools, and it depends on the grade level. You have a beach, Kapolei, that you could Mililani is one of the best, and then I would consider Kailua as well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That's some good advice. I hope that helps you, Kirk. We had a question pop in, which I think is kind of fun to talk about over here. This is Tony, and he says, "Aloha, as a conservative Republican." Here we go. We always get we're gonna toe dip a little bit into politics, but not like crazy partisanship, right? Okay, aloha, as a conservative Republican, will I be welcome in the Kona Big Island community? Now, Tony, I got to tell you, you are so lucky that you tuned into this show, because Dylan, many moons ago, when he was a little baby, was a big dude in the Republican Party a long time ago. Right, Dylan? That's how you and I got to be really good friends from way back. Why don't you kind of tell Tony what it's like to be a Republican? I don't know about what it's like to be, but what would you answer to him? What would you tell him if he asked you that? Well, he is asking you that. What do you say?
Yeah, you'll be just fine. At the end of the day, I think it's not necessarily your belief system or your political party. It's how you conduct yourself and how you treat other people. And, I had lots of friends as politically involved as I was at one point. I got lots of friends on both sides of the aisle, and I think reasonable people can always get along. But politics in general is not a nasty partisan thing in Hawaii like I think it is in other places. Like we talk about lots of other stuff, Hawaii is just a little bit different. And although we have our political disagreements and people have their beliefs, you don't have the real ugly partisanship that you see in other places. So from that standpoint, I think you'd be just fine. As long as you don't come in here being crazy and wearing a MAGA hat everywhere you go, you probably be all right.
just don't wear the MAGA hat, and don't have your car wrapped with Trump 2020, and I think you're gonna probably be fine. Scott, you want to throw?
I will say, I was at Costco last weekend and I saw probably 10 cars. They were doing a Trump rally wrapped with the Trump stickers, and not stickers, but a whole car wrap, and it caught my eye for sure. You don't see that a whole lot over here, but they were there. Of course.
That's about as rare as it gets. Heidi, you want to chime in on kind of what you kind of see on the sort of on the Democrat or Republican side? What's the vibe like in Maui? I mean, actually, I wanted to take this minute to thank you all. Thank you, Scott, and you, Heidi, and you, Dylan, for being here. This is we're quickly evolving into one of the only sort of statewide real estate shows. Once we get our Kauai person on board, we'll be like across the island. And I love the fact that we can get different perspectives, because really they're really, really different. Big Island, Oahu, Maui, big difference between them. And having you all here to share your perspectives is extraordinarily valuable. And I hope everyone who's watching really appreciates it as much as I do. Heidi, what's the Democrat? If Tony's question was geared towards Maui instead of Big Island, what would you say as a conservative Republican? Would I be welcome in Maui? How do you respond to that?
I agree with what Dylan was saying, that it's more how you conduct yourself, and if you're somebody that's going to be respectful to other people and get along with people, you'll be just fine. I mean, there's Democrats and Republicans on Maui. Maui's really a melting pot of people from all over the place here. So
yeah, great.
I think you'll just be fine.
And all of you have said this, and I kind of wanted to actually emphasize this. We had one of the videos that there was a question that was asked several shows ago about, hey, I'm worried about a native the local population being anti-white or whatever. What's up with that? And Dylan gave a great response, and I think you've all echoed it here, which is really, if you're and actually the comments on YouTube were overwhelmingly supportive of this fundamental idea that you've all said, which is to be respectful of others. If you're respectful of others, if you're respectful of the culture, if you do your best to kind of fit in. Dylan, I think you put it great one time. You said, if you embrace and respect us, we will embrace and respect you. And I think that is an overriding, a beautiful principle of what I see going on in Hawaii. So that's kind of cool. And I guess Mike and Julie are kind of happy about that. Is that a sweat of relief? I'm not too sure what that little icon is over there. And it looks like a sweaty brow. I guess not too sure. Anyway, glad that they're happy about that. I'll take that as a good thing. Hey, let's take a look. Let's move on to a next question over here. And by the way, let me just back up just for a quick sec, everybody. We're glad you're all here. I'm going to do the best I can to pop in your questions as the conversation is going along. If you see something or you think about something that you'd like to have answered, throw it in the comments. I'll do my best to catch up on it. All right. So this one is for you, Heidi, to get the ball rolling. Sell then rent while looking. So this is from Marianne and from Long Beach, California. And she says, would it be advisable to sell our house here in California first, move to Maui, and then rent while searching for a home? Or could we successfully make a contingency offer from California? We're looking for a single family house in the Kula area, which seems to have limiting housing stock. Heidi, how do you respond to Marianne's question?
Well, Marianne, I really appreciate the question. It's a great question, and it is really important to think through the whole process when you're making a big move. In order to really advise you what to do, I need to know more about your personal situation. For some people, it could work great. For others, it might be a source of added anxiety, and it might be better to rent first to get over here and then buy. So I really can't answer that specifically. One thing to keep in mind, if you are making a contingent offer, most sellers are going to want to see very strong evidence that your other property is already under contract or it's going to sell in an acceptable time frame. And then, of course, if you're competing with other offers, a non-contingent offer is going to be stronger. And then I guess another factor too, of course, is just timing it right, making sure the right property that you want to invest in is coming to the market and coming available right at the right time you're selling your house in California. And then another factor too is you want to consider if you're comfortable purchasing a property sight unseen, or if you're going to be able to travel to Maui to inspect the property. So there's quite a few timing things that would have to happen to make that work. It is doable. But if you're not sure on the property, if you're not quite sure the area you want to be, for some people, moving over and renting for a year or so can work great too. So it's kind of, depends on the person.
Thanks, Heidi, for pointing that out. And you had mentioned that in some previous after-show discussions that we had, that some of these questions you really got to have a better kind of a situational understanding of, because everyone's different. So there's no sort of cut and dried, one-size-fits-all kind of answer. Which again is why in the description there's a link. You can put your questions in that description. Click in. There's a form that pops up. I advise you all to kind of put your questions in there. I could connect you with Heidi or Scott or Dylan to get some great expert advice. Dylan, is there anything you'd want to add to what Heidi said that would go beyond what she's already kind of put forward?
Yeah. I would just want to make sure that you know exactly where you want to buy. If you're gonna not rent first, if you've been here 10 times and you stayed in different areas and you're sure of the area that you want to live in, then go ahead and move forward with that. But like Heidi said, it's important that the home already be under contract. A lot of times we get asked, hey, can we put an offer in? My house isn't on the market yet, but it will be in a week. And that makes it very hard. You got to put yourself in the seller's shoes and consider, would you accept an offer based upon that, where there's an open-ended time frame and you're not sure exactly when that other property will go under contract or sell at all? And in the meantime, you're accepting a contract and taking your house off of the market and removing the ability for other buyers to potentially offer on it. So that's the biggest thing to consider, is that timing and getting a house under contract, and then making sure that you can close in a timely fashion to close on the property here. And it does, in a competitive market, you're going to be bottom of the barrel in terms of offers considered if you have a contingent offer. So it removes a lot of strength from your ability to compete for a house if there are multiple offers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, just put yourself in the seller's shoes. Would you want to put your house under contract to someone who's contingent upon selling their home in God knows what kind of an unknown market? Scott, is there anything that you can add to the conversation that we've already said that hasn't already been said?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a marketplace with limited inventory where you are going to be competing often, and you're not going to be able to compete with people who don't have that contingency. You do need to move that contingency, which means selling. And there's other benefits to selling. You're selling and you're ridding your mind that place that's been your home for many years. You can actually close that chapter, move over, start your new chapter. You're taking baby steps in this process, which is a lot easier to do when you're moving from the mainland here. It's a stressful event to me. So sell it, move or rent if this is where you want to be, then start focus on property. I wrote an offer the other day where we are contingent in that situation, but we had been in escrow before on a different property. The buyer on my client's property, and all the way through at the last 10 days closing, I pull out all the tricks, the tips, and have the buyer for that other contract call the people putting the offer in on stuff. So you're going to have a hard time competing with other offers, and it's a thing as well that can benefit you from closing one chapter and starting new.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. There's a psychological thing going on here. It's like closing a chapter of your life. which is a really good point. Just kind of close that chapter, close that door so others can open, as opposed to kind of keeping one foot in here and one foot there. Excellent. It's kind of funny, Dylan, George Zook gave us a question that actually flies in with a slide that I had queued up over here. So this is perfect. We're going to kind of hit two birds with one stone. So let me kind of hit let's hit George's question first, and I'm going to add the other question from this slide, Dylan. George, the stars are aligning here. So George says, are there certain areas of the Big Island that have a higher percentage of homeless or higher drug problem than others, and should be avoided when one looks for a home? And on the slide that I had ready, this is Wally from Hinsdale, Illinois. And he says, where can I find crime rates for a specific area, not just Hilo or Puna? Say a particular area of Hilo, or for example, Aloha. So there's clearly, Dylan, there's the echoes here is there's concerns about crime. There's concerns about, certain areas that, one might want to avoid. What's your advice to George on certain areas, or to Wally, who's looking for more information? Where do you go from here? How would you respond to that?
Well, in terms of information and data, I'm not very sure about that. I don't think that the police department or law enforcement reports or makes public specific crime incidences in specific areas. There are areas that are definitely, and let me put this in the context first. In general, Hawaii is like everywhere else. We have our issues. We have homeless. We have drug use. But I think in comparison, it's relatively minor to most other places. We have very little violent crime and property crime and major crime issues. So in general, moving here is going to be safer than probably anywhere else that you move in America. So although we have issues, it shouldn't be a huge deterrent. In terms of knowing what areas, the thing to consider is there's no magic deals, right? So a lot of times the places with lower property values have higher incidences of problems, right? Drugs, crime, things like that. And areas with higher property values don't. So that's one thing to consider, is if you're trying to get in super cheap, there are going to be those types of issues around in that area. But is that anywhere near as worse as a big city or most urban areas? Probably absolutely not. That's for the Big Island. On Oahu, there's other places where you have big homeless encampments in different areas and things like that. But in general, on the Big Island, you don't have like homeless encampments. You have people who maybe, live in a tent on a property or in a substandard structure, but you don't have like those large tent cities that you see in urban areas where there's a big concentration of them.
Yeah, I think because the Big Island doesn't have high concentration of urban areas, those urban areas are what typically would support a homeless population through donations and whatever, and that just doesn't exist over there. So that's kind of hard to find. Hey, we're just swimming right along over here. It's already 42 minutes. We only got about not even 20 minutes left. Let's take a quick question from a longtime listener or longtime viewer, Teresa. I think Teresa's been on almost every show that we've had. So Teresa, we're going to kind of move you to the front of the line over here. You said, when I view a home online that is listed for sale, can you tell me what it means when the listing says in escrow showing? Does it mean the home has a contract on it, but the home is still showing in case financing falls through on the accepted contract? Scott, I'd love to give this one to you because I know like you're chomp on the bit for these kind of things, but your audio is kind of messed up today, and so we love you to pieces. But I'm gonna ask Heidi. Heidi, if you would, could you take a shot? And if you don't, Heidi, I'm assuming you can answer this, and if you can't, just say so. Wait, wrong one. How do you respond to Teresa's question here with what in escrow showing? What does that mean?
Well, yes, Teresa, that's exactly right. It means there's an accepted offer on the property. It's under contract and the buyer is going through their contingencies, and there's still contingencies that haven't been removed. Often it's financing. So if you're really interested in the property, it doesn't hurt to reach out and ask about it. because they're indicating they're still showing it and perhaps would consider
Excellent.
a
Yeah.
backup
And
offer.
Teresa, look, I would definitely recommend, I think we've got a connection with you to, I believe, Scott, if I'm not mistaken, or one of us, send the group the question. We'll be happy. I'm sure they'd be happy to look into it. And now we've got like almost statewide coverage here. We actually have a contact in Kauai if we need to have some coverage on Kauai. So please make sure you know about this. Here's one, Scott. We're gonna try you on this one, see how the audio works. We're gonna pray to the internet gods over here. Tony says, as a small business owner, what is the state of commercial real estate in Hawaii? Do you see commercial real estate becoming more affordable to purchase or lease? Scott, how would you respond to that?
Absolutely. The commercial sector is really struggling right now, and quite a commercial brokers who they have people, they're doing a lot of work right now between the owners and the tenants, because the tenants can't pay their, and the owners are still obligated on the payment. So trying to figure, do we lower rents, what do we do? But yeah, so even coming out of the economic portion, we're going to be limited in the tourism side. So I would assume, price per foot is going to decline some, which means pricing should decline, because you working rates and internal rates of return and things like that. And your leasable, there's going to be a lot more spaces open and vacant, which they're already happening. The size is going to be there, and the demand is not as much for the leasable space. So it should come down.
Got it. Yeah, Scott, your audios are breaking up just a little scooch over there. Dylan, what's the state of the commercial? If you can kind of quickly hit Tony's question, what's the state of the commercial real estate market, the way you've seen it in Hilo and on the Big On Hilo Kona side?
In general, the commercial real estate market is very limited. So in the past, it's been a really good investment because there isn't very much space. There's a lot of demand for it. And there isn't a lot of new space to develop new commercial real estate. So what's existing would always be full, and you could get a pretty high price per square foot from tenants. But like Scott said, going forward, I think that's going to change a little bit. Obviously, with businesses going out of business right now, or potentially realizing that they don't need to reopen or they need to downsize. We actually just moved real estate offices. We are primarily a cloud-based company to begin with, but we do like a physical space. But it was just we were in a big space that was unnecessary. No one was ever there, so we didn't pull out, but we went to a space that was about half the size and reduced our costs. And I think a lot of other companies are going to see that also, that this telework works, and you put a couple of new systems into place, and you don't need to have 25 people sitting in an office and having square footage for all of them going forward. And that's definitely going to change the dynamic in the commercial real estate market.
Yeah, I think office space is going to be a really big office space is going to mean for a really big rude awakening. I think even when COVID is completely gone and we're all everyone's COVID free, it's kind of even hard. Go ahead.
Same thing with restaurants. I mean, restaurants are going to realize that, if they got a delivery service, or they're using Uber Eats or all these other services, they don't need this huge space to air condition and have lights in and have staff to clean, and they can do somewhat near the same amount of business. There's a great place in town, Big Island Grill, that I just picked up lunch, and it's in an old fast food joint. So there was an old drive-through window, which they never used because they actually had a dining room. But now that the dining room isn't open, or hasn't been open, now that they could reopen, they didn't reopen, because all day long people just drive up to the drive-through and they pass them off their food and they go on their way. And I'm sure they have half as much staff and half as many operating expenses just because they're not operating their large dining room.
We almost need to have another show to speculate how the world's going to be different post-COVID, because that's going to be a huge one. I'd like to discuss this some more, but I kind of feel the need to move on, and I do want to move to our diamonds and deals, which is kind of a fun segment over here. So let's move on with that. So what we try to do over here is I've asked our team here to put together properties that they feel are aspirational, things that, an ooh and ah, a neat thing. They're technically properties for sale, but we're not here to sell them. We're here to kind of show you some examples of the best of Hawaii, and from a variety of angles. So let's move into Scott's got one over here. And Scott, I'm going to ask you to kind of talk a little bit slower again, because your voice does break up a lot. You got this Ilikai apartment with an killer view with also an amazing fireworks display there that you get to watch on Friday. I'll speak for you, Scott, a little bit here to kind of say the speech. On Fridays on Oahu, there's a fireworks show every Friday night, and looks like you get a front row view of those fireworks. Scott, tell us about what's the story behind this Ilokai apartment.
Yeah, so first off, where this fireworks show in that picture is more or less they go off for this unit. The Hilton is right off to the left here, which is who does the fireworks show. So you get on this side of the building, you get a full-blown fireworks every Friday night. You're looking out to the ocean. This is an oceanfront unit, classified as one of the few vacation rental resort zone condo building in Waikiki, ocean side of the road. And went over there to preview units. I ran into one guy. He was renting a unit for $2,000 a month when they normally go for $5,000. There was no one in the hotel. This really good deal in a diamond kind of a building. This is actually where original Hawaii 5-0 with Jack Lord. He was standing on top of the building in the beginning. Shot is recorded from. So if you ever go and look at that, you'll see the building. But the last unit that just put it this way, I was talking about how busy the single family home market is. Well, this is the opposite. There's 4 units on the market in this building right now, and only 3 have sold in the last 3 months. That's 1 per month. That means it could take someone 34 months before they sell their unit in here. There are significant deals to be had in this building. This is a great renovated unit. One just sold for $100,000 less than they had it listed for. Last one that sold. So people want to get out with no income coming in, and it's a good time to get it towards them.
So even though that was broken up like crazy, I'll kind of quickly paraphrase. This is Scott said that right now someone is renting out a unit for $2,000 a month that normally rents for $5,000 a month, and so this price here is reflecting, I think, a serious price drop that's going on in the Waikiki area. Thanks, Scott, and I'm sorry. I hope we're going to pray to the internet gods and have your audio back at our next show better. Let's get to this one here. So Dylan, this is yours. Fill us in on what this place is all about.
Yeah, this is, I mean, maybe not a diamond, but definitely a deal and a business opportunity. Yeah, this is a pretty unique property right off of Ali'i Drive, across from the water, and it's basically 6 separate rentable units. So they're like 2-bedroom, 1-bath units, and if you wanted to live in them and rent 5 of them out, this is priced at $1.6 million. But if you run the numbers, it's potentially something that could definitely pay for itself and make a little bit of money. If we go back to, even if you long-term rented it could definitely be a good investment. But if you short-term rented it could be even better if we go back to normal times and you get to short-term rent properties. But just an interesting property listed by one of the members on my team, and thought things like this don't come up very often. A lot of times people ask about opportunities like this, and we don't have a lot of zone properties where you have these multiple unit type situations, and so they're few and far between. So this is definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, they sure are few and far between. That's for sure. Not that I'm a real estate expert, but you don't see. And this looks really nice. I mean, the homes, the units look nice. They look like they're well maintained. Yeah, concrete driveway, all the kind of nice setup over here.
And then you can walk across the street to the water.
And you walk across the water. That's a nice thing. All right, cool. Thanks. All right, let's hit yours. Interesting, Heidi. How did you know? Because someone earlier had talked about Kula, so that was a great. I'm sure we've all planned it out this way. So fill us in on this place that you're seeing in Kula.
Yeah, this is an incredible property. It's on 2.3 acres up in Kula. There's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, plus a detached garage with a bedroom and kitchen, so kind of an Ohana area. The zoning is rural, so there's the potential to build additional homes or dwellings on the property if you wanted. And you have those great bi-coastal views, and There's lots of fruit trees on the property, and some of the topography is sloped, and that sloped area is maintained by goats, so they preserve your view.
Goat. And so this features goat maintained views. I love it. That's the headline I would put on this. Those views look absolutely stunning. That looks like a fire pit there on the lower left, which is like, so then I'm assuming it looks like either a sunset or a sunrise that they're catching on there. When you say bi-coastal, can you explain what you mean by bi-coastal views?
Well, so in the picture there, you're looking at West Maui and South Maui. So you're looking at the two coasts.
So the west would be what, the one on the lower left, does the fire pit sort of overlook the west side? Is that it?
If you're looking at the picture with the two red chairs, you're looking towards West Maui there.
Got it. You're looking towards West Maui, and which one is looking towards South Maui?
Well, kind of over to the left.
Got it. The one with the fire pit?
I guess so. Yeah, kind of. You can't really see it from that.
But by bi-coastal views, you mean that you get to see the ocean from both the west side and you said the south shore. So look, there's two different sort of sides of basically this thing is high up enough and sloped enough where you kind of see two different sides of the island. Is that what you meant by bi-coastal?
Yeah.
Got it. Very, very cool. All right. Hey, we got a question here from Vani, and Vani says, when using a VA home loan, do you have an advantage over other home buyers? Dylan, you want to take this one? How does the VA home loan, because you're in the military, what does the VA home loan do or not do for you?
I just use my VA home loan to buy the house I'm sitting at. So I would say honestly no, because the VA requirements, especially appraisal requirements, are more stringent. So if somebody's coming in with 50% cash down or all cash, and you're doing a VA loan, your offer is not as strong. So it's a good loan to use. It's a great benefit, but from a competitive standpoint, it doesn't necessarily give you an advantage. And it can be a disadvantage if the home is anything other than pretty standard. You have to have a very standard home with no issues, no unpermitted space, good access, because it's 100% loan, the VA makes sure that it's a very safe bet when they are lending that money. So you have to have a very straightforward deal, nothing weird or strange. And a lot of Hawaii properties have weird or strange things going on.
So what I basically hear you saying is it's a great loan program for the person who's tapping it, but in terms of any advantage to home buyers, not really.
In general, when you rank multiple offers, cash always goes to the top, and then it's the highest down payment, and then it's next lowest down payment. And if you have 100% loan programs like USDA or VA, they're usually going to go at the bottom of that ranking. So the strongest offer is always going to be cash. The more amount of cash that's being put down, the easier it's going to be for that borrower to qualify for the loan, because they're not borrowing as much money, and the appraisal doesn't necessarily have to come in as high.
It's the old cash is king thing that we're all talking about, right? Cash always rules, and when in doubt, as Scott says, bid over the asking price, and even then you're still not going to get lucky. I'm still kind of miffed. $100,000 over asking price, and you still didn't get it. That's kind of crazy. Okay, so you know what? The show's almost done. Let's do one thing really quick. So here's what I want to try here. So Cindy. I love the last name, Cindy Believe. I just love that last name. Okay, so she asked tips for first-time buyers. So let's do this. I'm sure we could talk about this for like hours. So here's what I want to do. I want you all to think of one thing, the most important tip that you would give to a first-time buyer. If you could only say one thing and give it out quick, because we got 2 minutes over here left. So Heidi, you're going to go first. Dylan, you're going to go second, and then Scott, we're going to pray, and you're going to go last. So Heidi, what's the one thing you would say for a first-time buyer tip?
I would say definitely get pre-approved before you start looking for homes. Get connected with a great lender. Just make sure you have your financing in order, because that way when you start shopping, you'll just have a realistic understanding of what all the costs are and what you're comfortable.
Okay. Great. Got it. Thank you. Get pre-approved. Okay, Dylan, what's your one tip on top of that one?
My one big tip is your mindset. Think about your first time home is going to be your first time home, not your last home, not your dream home, right? So a lot of people have expectations of buying this amazing, great home that when it's their first home. And a lot of times real estate, like everything else, your first job is never your last job. Your first home is in 99% of the time a stepping stone to your second, third, fourth home or fifth home, which may be your dream home in the future. So go into it with that mindset. Understand you may have to put some sweat equity into it, but don't be disappointed. Don't have unrealistic expectations.
Get your mindset right. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you guys on time. Scott, give us the quick one. What's your tip?
Yeah, Dylan, mine, but no, there is a nervousness, but if you keep in mind you are setting your financial foundation up to have such greater success forward, where you can use that property, get you to the next stepping stone. So when you have the kids, it's easier to get a single family home that you need when family grows and things like that.
Okay, that got a little broken up, so I'll paraphrase. I believe what Scott's saying is that see that first home as a stepping stone home and plan and set yourself up for how you might go further, because this won't be your last home. It's just your first home. Well, gang, look, it's been a great show as usual. I can't thank you all enough. Dylan, thank you for being here. Heidi, thanks for showing up. Thanks for spending the time. Scott, love having you here, man, and love the view. It's been a great show, and everyone here who's asked such great questions, love you all. Thanks so much for doing it. Livinginhawaii.com is the website. If you're not already there, you should go there. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter, because we're going to send you the updates as the show goes. And of course, this show is going to get sent out. It's going to get emailed out in a couple of days. You can kind of go back over this if you want. It's actually already up on YouTube Live, and it's actually on Facebook Live. So the ones that are here live, you can kind of play it back. All right, folks, I think that's it. I want to bid you all a great aloha. Have a fantastic weekend, and we're going to see you in 2 weeks. Aloha, folks. Have a great one. You guys can give the old shaka wave over here. We're still live. You can give the shaka wave, everybody. All right, that's it. Yeah, I got to do that. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a great one. Aloha.